Hey yo, it is Containment here, back with another video. And as you guys can clearly tell from the thumbnail, yes, there is a thumbnail for this series now. We are doing the next part of What If Deku Was Raven's Brother. Oh, by the way, we are currently at 971 subscribers at the time of this recording. I've heard some things in the past about some people being unsubscribed from certain YouTubers by YouTube for some odd reason. So you guys just make sure you check to make sure to check that you are subscribed to me throughout this video. After this video, make sure that you are either subscribed, or if you weren't subscribed in the very first place, what are you doing? Subscribe, because we are trying to reach 1,000 subscribers by the end of the year. We are really close to it now. We just need 29 more subscribers. Come on. But yeah, that's all I got to say for right now. Let's get on with the video. So last part I ended off with Raven, Cyborg, and Starfire all making it to USJ, where they basically find a monstrous version of Izuku, basically squeezing the life out of the Nomu. And all the streets, it's chaos out on the streets because Izuku is releasing so much negative energy that it's basically been mutating the civilians, basically exploding the streets, all of that. So Raven has been, for the past 3 minutes, been trying to Raven has been trying to put an end to Izuku. Not necessarily kill him, but more so basically trying to help her little brother out. Raven was the firstborn. More like this. Raven, here's the thing with Raven. She came out of the womb 5 minutes before Izuku. That's it. So she is the older sibling here. But Izuku doesn't really care. Izuku does not care. He doesn't even know who his sister is. He just sees that there's this weird, gray-skinned woman that just appeared in front of him, wearing this dark purple little cloak of the sorts. When she's not going to lie, it looks kind of cool, but at the same time, he still does not care who she is. He has just went ballistic. He has lost his mind here. But for some reason, she's able to somehow contain him. This is the first person that he's ever met that's ever been able to actually be able to somehow even remotely control him. Everybody else was always too weak for him. So he's wondering who she is. She's looking at these other two strange people. One looks like a robot of the sorts, but with some human qualities to him, but mainly robotic. Was he a cyborg of the sorts? And then there was this tan/orange girl who he wouldn't lie. She does look. She's not hard on the eyes. She's pretty easy on the eyes. She's relatively attractive in Izuku's eyes, but that's not what he's focusing on right now. He's focusing on trying to swat away these guys. He's basically trying to get these guys off of him, because for some reason they're just on another level of strength. They are the first people he's ever met that can actually hold a candle to him. And even then, when I say hold a candle, It's more so that Raven is the one that's doing most of the work here. She is using all of her spell binding tricks. She's using all of her binding tricks right now in order to control Izuku. Eventually, she starts to use some siphoning abilities. She realizes that he's been absorbing too much negative energy, so she's basically trying to remove that out of Izuku's system. As for Starfire and Cyborg, they're basically like damage control right now. They're basically making sure that nobody in the USJ gets hurt from Izuku's attacks, because Izuku has gone pretty ballistic right now. I keep on using ballistic for no reason. Izuku is just overpowered right now. And Starfire and Cyborg, they can't really do much against Izuku. This is more so Raven's territory, so they're basically here as support. Eventually, All Might does arrive and sees the mess that they're in. He tries to help, but come on already. No. Let's face it already. There is nothing that All Might could do here. That's pretty sad. There's nothing All Might could do. All Might also ends up becoming damage control. He ends up being a bit of the support here. He basically knocks out the rest of the villains. People like Shigaraki and Kiri. You know who I'm talking about. They basically try to escape. Snipe ends up shooting them like in cannon, and he tries to shoot Izuku as well, because he doesn't know what this creature is. All it is to like, don't shoot him, don't shoot him. That's Izuku. Snipe actually holds back his bullet and is like, what? Some of the students try to explain the whole situation and explain like these guys, this cyborg looking dude, this red-haired girl, and this one in the purple cloak. They all just came out of here. They all came here out of nowhere. They basically flew from the sky downwards, and all of a sudden they tried to take control of Izuku. After he went into this demon-like state, they're basically the ones who have been able to really control him so far. They've basically been the ones that were able to really do anything against Izuku. Snipe nods and is like, okay, we're gonna have a talk about this later, but for now, let's see what these guys can do. Of course, they're going to try and, help with Izuku's situation. They even bring in Midnight, and she actually is used to help against Izuku, trying to knock out Izuku. She releases her gas of the sort, her pheromones. I don't know what to call it, but when she releases her sleeping gas, it actually causes Cyborg and Starfire to also be knocked out. As for Raven, she sees what's going on. She realizes it's sleep gas, and it's like, hey, I can actually use this. So she actually uses Midnight sleeping gas to her advantage, and increases the amount of it. She increases the extent of the sleeping gas to the point where it's able to actually reach up to Izuku, and she makes it strong enough to where she actually mutates the sleeping gas. It's mutated to where it will cause him to sleep and also remove this negative energy from Izuku, because he's absorbed way too much of it. He is too much like their father in that aspect where he is just going to be made up of negative energy. all this negative energy was bad for Izuku. Too much of one thing is good. Too much of one thing isn't good for you. That's basically what Raven has realized, looking at Izuku. So that's what she's trying to do. By the end, she is actually successful in being able to take down Izuku, but she is exhausted. She is tired. She is extremely tired right now, and she ends up going to sleep as well on the floor. She was flying at first, but she just dropped down to the ground, unconscious. All Might is actually able to catch her in mid-air, thankfully. But they don't know anything else. When Raven wakes up, she realizes that she is in a room by herself and some of the police officers alongside some of the heroes. They're basically trying to interrogate her. She explains the whole situation and how she is from America and she is basically a Teen Titan. Now, for those who don't know, in this universe, the Teen Titans are basically going to be a group of heroes of the sorts. More like Cyborg is the oldest out of the group, but not necessarily the leader. He's more so the one that's actually able to. Alright, look. It's basically like this. We have the Justice League. The Justice League has Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman as the Trinity. But they're not necessarily the same versions that we know of in the DC universe. Batman is relatively the same. He doesn't really have much power. It's more so that he does have a quirk in this universe, and that is what's able to help him be able to perform all those incredible feats of strength and speed, just combat in general. He basically has a high durability sort of quirk. High durability and strength. He basically has an enhanced body kind of quirk. As for Superman, same thing. He just has what he has in canon. Regular Superman, except that it's just, I don't know how to explain it. It's basically that his body is that of an alien. He's meant to have a lot of quirks, but this was because of the fact that this was an experiment made by the US government. So when it comes on to Wonder Woman now, she also has a quirk, which allows her to fly and do all of those feats of strength that she's able to do. Yeah, that all comes down to her quirk, which is basically like a tactile telekinesis of the sorts. And she also has a psychokinetic. Forget it. She has telekinetic abilities. It's just that she uses it differently than others, and we expect her to use it. As for the rest of the Justice League, they're basically made up of like the top heroes throughout all of the states of America. And they basically have their own quirks as well. Batman doesn't have the strongest quirk, but he makes up for it in his intelligence. He has a high amount of intelligence, which makes him one of the more dangerous members of the Justice League. He's also very rich, mainly because of his parents, and well, it's like this. Batman is still incredibly rich. Like, insanely rich. He's still a billionaire. He's a billionaire playboy. But this is also because of the fact that he is a hero. He has an income. He has a steady income coming in, alongside the fact that he has his own business on top of being a hero. So he's making double the income. As for on top of the fact that his parents did die and they were very wealthy as well. So Bruce Wayne, he was the sole inheritor of their fortune. And that's basically how the things are. He basically set up the Teen Titans and the Young Justice League. Basically like this. They're meant to be a sort of small superhero team of the younger generation. They're like 16 to 19 year olds. Basically the ones that are still in high school. And they're basically meant to be the ones to help out, trying to make sure that they gain experience from young, in order to make sure that when they do end up hopping into the whole professional hero league, they won't end up screwing up. They will have a good amount of experience in order to look out on their own. But for right now, they will be working in teams. And that was what the Teen Titans were meant for. That they would be working in teams until they would graduate from high school, or at least reach that high school graduate age, and get there and basically be considered true heroes. Raven is still a hero in training in this universe. That's basically how it is. That's what she explained to like all of the Japanese officers and heroes. And of course she does know how to speak their language as well. Obviously. Because she is multilingual. Even though she wasn't, she just knows spells that can make her multilingual. What they don't know is that she is not necessarily completely human. As a matter of fact, she is half human. They don't know that she's part demon. They don't know anything about Raven's background with her powers. They just think that she has like some sort of dark manipulation kind of quirk. And she's like, yeah? Sure, let's roll with that. That's basically how it is for Raven, and that's also the same for the other Titans as well. They basically all explain that, hey, we are from America, we are part of the Teen Titans, all of that. And they actually let them go when they actually talk to Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman. They actually hit up the headquarters of the Justice League in order to make sure that they were telling the truth. Sure, they had to stay for a couple of days, but when they realized that, hey, Raven wasn't lying, they're like, okay, bet, you're free to go. And Raven actually meets up with Izuku, who is much smaller now. She's actually surprised to see how small he is right now. She was expecting him to be much, much larger, especially considering the fact that the first time she ever saw him and can remember seeing him, he was a hulking giant. And that was basically roaring, basically destroying everything within the vicinity, basically corrupting the streets, all of that. But Izuku is calm now. And when I say small, he's just under 6 foot. So, not necessarily small, but small in comparison to what she saw. She ended up greeting Izuku, and the way that she was able to even recognize Izuku was from his aura and the fact that he does have these horns, which are an unusual trait, even for mutant type quirk users. Not many of them really have horns. So she's like, so what's your name? Izuku introduces himself as Izuku Todoroki, and Raven introduces herself as simply that, Raven. And she mentions how he seems to have a familiar aura for some odd reason. They start talking and they eventually realize that, okay, oh snap, we are related. We might actually be related, because Izuku actually ends up mentioning some of his dreams. Raven realizes that, hey, I used to have some of those dreams as well. So for those 2 weeks that they were off from school, they would basically be training with each other. They would train and help Izuku to basically lock out his dreams from Trigon, their father. That was their main goal at the time. By the end of the 2 weeks, sure, they were able to be mostly successful, but Izuku would have a bit of visions of Trigon still, but he wasn't really able to talk to Izuku in his dreams anymore, or even move in his dreams anymore, have any influence over Izuku's dreams anymore. He was just there. And they would try and fix that though, but for right now they had the sports festival to worry about, because of the fact that Raven, Starfire, and Cyborg aren't necessarily in UA. They wouldn't be allowed to participate in the sports festival. Sure, they could watch, but that was all. And this is where things get interesting, because obviously your boy Izuku will still dominate throughout the whole sports festival. Raven would be there just to monitor Izuku, make sure that he doesn't absorb too much negative energy. That's what she was actually teaching Izuku throughout their training as well, not to absorb too much negative energy. As a matter of fact, to not absorb negative energy at all, because he was just passively absorbing that negative energy, and he was absorbing more than he could let out during the USJ. So she made sure to put an end to that before that whole event could happen again. But still, she would be there just to monitor Izuku. Same for Raven and... No, not Raven. Same for Starfire and Cyborg. That's what I meant to say. They would watch Izuku throughout the sports festival. Izuku was able to dominate. That's probably one of the most interesting things about it. Izuku was able to take down everybody throughout the sports festival. He would, in the very first fight, Izuku was able to take down Todoroki, Bakugo. He was basically able to get through the obstacle course like it was nothing. All of those robots, he was basically using his energy manipulation, destroying those robots like they were like hot butter knives. Like, you know those videos on YouTube from a couple years ago, like 9,000 degree knife cutting through this thing, that thing, all that. That's basically what was happening with Izuku. He was shaping his arms into these energy blades and chopping through all of these robots. And when it came onto that tightrope, Izuku just jumped over it. He didn't even bother using his telekinesis to fly over it. None of that. Even when it came on to just the mines as well, Izuku was sturdy enough to where they just did not affect him. He didn't even bother flying anymore. Bakugo was trying to get the lead on Izuku, same for Todoroki, but none of them were fast enough to actually keep up with that tank of a human being. Izuku actually ended up making it in first place without even using most of his abilities, not even a quarter of them, honestly. He still has a lot of untapped potential. untapped potential that he kind of refuses to use right now as well. He was able to just walk through that minefield as if it was nothing. When it came on to the cavalry battle, Izuku was using his telekinesis to make sure that everybody was floating, and he just took their headbands. He was able to just stack up on everybody's headbands. It was just so absurd just watching that whole event happen that they basically had to make a rule that Izuku cannot use his telekinesis after the first half. Of course, Izuku didn't have a problem with that still, and just made energy projections. He would just shoot energy and his opponents, anyone that would get close to him, they wouldn't be able to do anything against him. And of course, Izuku is on the bottom here because there's no way that these guys would be able to lift Izuku. Izuku is probably like 300 pounds of muscle right now. Yeah, absurd, I know. But who cares? Lean muscle as well. I should have pointed that out as well. But yeah, cavalry battle. Izuku took home first place for both rounds. The heroes are looking at Izuku and they're like, okay, who is this kid? Wait a second. He is the adopted son of Endeavor, the number 2 hero. That's fascinating. What the heck? What the heck was Endeavor feeding this boy? What kind of steroids was this guy feeding this boy throughout his childhood? Because they're looking at Todoroki, the bloodborne son of NG Todoroki, and they're like, how that work? Because the Todoroki is strong. Don't get me wrong. Todoroki is incredibly strong, but Izuku is just overshadowing Todoroki in every regard. When it came on to the matchups, all those fights, Izuku is just handing out L's throughout the whole fight. When he had to fight Shinso was really considering giving up immediately, because he's like, I don't want to mess with this guy, but he still wants to make it into the hero quest, so he still tries to make Izuku talk. Unfortunately, that doesn't work on Izuku because of the fact that he's just went through a lot more, and everything that Shinso tries to say just makes him sound really pitiful in Izuku's eyes. Like, you were lucky to be born with a quig. You were lucky to be born this strong. You were lucky. Izuku in his head is like blah 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 and just shoots him with some eye rays. He does not really care at all for what Shinso has to say, and he even says that afterwards. He says, if you want to complain about how you have dealt a bad hand in life, well, go ahead. I don't really care, because that won't change anything. You need to step up. Look at people like Aizawa, not Aizawa, but look at people like Eraserhead. Look at people like Mandalay, for crying out loud.